Hello and welcome to part 6 of the Johnny Blender 5 tutorial series with the little Jacky puppy dog here. When last I left you, we had just finished working on the texture map for his body, and now we're going to get in and do the texture map for his eyeballs. So, what we can do, if you like, is go ahead and grab the model and hit H just to hide it, get it out of the way for now. And we're going to tab into edit mode there on the eyeball. And let's go ahead and set the subsurf to be visible in edit mode. So go ahead and click that. Now what I want to do is grab my vertex select. And we already have the outer rim there selected. So I'm going to go ahead and Control E. And I'm going to mark the seam. And I'm going to add another one right here where the pupil is. Mark that seam. And we're going to go ahead and grab these vertices out here. And go ahead and mark that seam. And now, what a special thing I mentioned, and I don't remember what part it was, probably part 2 or 3, where I was going to show you a technique on how to do some nice eyes. I think I probably showed before, but, you know, repetition is a good way to learn. So, we're going to add one more seam right there, Control E, mark the seam. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and unwrap these guys. And as you can see, they still have the texture map for Jacky, so let's go ahead and clear that out. And we're going to create a new one. And this one we can go ahead and leave 1024 by 1024, but I want to go ahead and make it white like we discussed before. So go ahead and say OK. Now, one thing I would like to do, or that I'm going to do to show you the special technique I have for doing eyeballs, is to... Okay. Well, let me show you instead of just trying to explain. What we're going to do is we're going to, well, I guess I'll tell you. We're going to set up a material or a texture that and apply it to just where the iris is going to be. And it's going to be a procedural texture. But then we're going to bake that. Once we get it set up, we're going to bake it to the final texture. So it's not procedural anymore. It's an actual texture. So the way we do that is we added the seam around each section of the iris and then split it in half. So this is it right here. That's our iris. And what I'm going to do is, instead of this being a circular shape, I'm going to turn it into a rectangular shape. So I'm going to select this edge here and go ahead and turn off the proportional editing, Alt-O. You have to be in the 3D window to do that. Or you can... there's a way to do it in here as well. But... anyways, the easiest way is just to come over here and turn it off there. So I'm going to go ahead and rotate that edge to where it's flipped around like that and scale it on the x-axis 0 times 0%, and then go ahead and move it up here. And I'm going to hit P, and that's going to pin those vertices right there where they're at. So I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. Rotate that around. If I can get it. There we go. SX0. There we go. And I'm going to move this up here. Actually, let's move it over here and make sure it's the same size as the other. Like so. Okay, we'll move it over here and go ahead and hit P. P. Make sure you're in this window. And now one thing we can do to help spread that out is to go ahead and unwrap again. As you can see, it really straightened it out. But that's not quite what I'm looking for just yet. So I'm going to grab the top of it, Y0. Now, when you're working in the graphic editor here, you can only use X and Y coordinates. Usually when you're in the 3D, you want to scale it vertically, you scale it on the Z axis. But the 2D dimension over here does not have the Z axis, which is the third dimension. It's only 2 dimensions. So you can only scale on X and Y. So we're going to scale Y 0%. So bring that, oopsie. I think I hit H to hide it on accident. So we'll drag that down. And then... let's go ahead and pin those as well, and then grab the top and pin that. But now I'd like to straighten some of these up. So grab those in the middle and SX0, just like that, and just do that across all of these. So they're nice and straight. Okay, and then we'll do the same thing on this guy. SY0 now. Drag that up just a bit, and SY0. Now, I'm noticing that 1, 2, 3. Okay, no, that's right. The bottom part needs to go down a little bit further, as you can see, in order to map it out nicely. The bottom row of faces is relatively thin, and then the second row and third row are a little bit thicker, so it should be about like that. Okay, so now we can grab all these guys and pin them all there. Maybe even scale them up a bit. Scale them on the x-axis some. So get that. This is going to be the iris. Okay, now everything else will need to be white except for this part right here, which is going to be the pupil. And also, if we Alt-H over here in our window, Alt-H, there we go. You can see that that lens that we hid before has not been unwrapped at all. So, but we don't need it to because it's not actually going to have texture on it. So we can just select everything, come up here, and it's actually, when you don't unwrap anything, it actually just kind of puts it over in the corner. Or, I guess that's it, yeah. So, you know, it's, well, let's select that and unwrap that as well. There we go. So it doesn't really matter what we do with this. I like to just kind of put it over to the side. But that's going to be the lens. It's going to be a whole other material, so it doesn't really matter what we do with it. So anyways, one thing I would like to do, however, is go ahead and paint the pupil part black. So just like that. Okay, so now. Okay. Now, what I was talking about in creating the procedural texture for the iris is just go into edit mode. Let's go ahead and hide that lens again. Hide. And then we'll select the faces of the iris area. And go ahead and create a new material there. And we'll call this one iris. Okay. And I think that should be good. Actually, tell you what, let's create a material for each and every section here. So we're going to have one for the iris, one for the pupil. I know we painted it, but no biggie. When we bake it, it'll just be the same thing. So, and we'll go ahead and create a material for the eye whites. So go ahead and create a new one, plus sign right there, and new. Go ahead and call this an eye white. Doesn't really matter what we name it because we're going to end up deleting it once we're done. But I like to just, you know, just for visual sake. Okay, so now we have to assign each part of this eyeball to each one of these colors. So go and assign that section there to the pupil. Go ahead and select this section, assign that to the iris, and then select these sections and assign those to eye white. Okay, so now let's go to iris and we'll select the texture tab, and we're going to use clouds, but instead of the Blender original, let's go with one of these Voronoi. I never can recall exactly which one I like to use. And let's turn them to hard. That'll be a little more visible. Yeah, let's go with that one. Voronoi F2. And let's change the colors. Set the black color. It's always alpha 0 black. So let's run that all the way up to 1. So we got black, and then dogs usually have brownish colored eyes. Usually, sometimes they're blue. I've seen huskies and things like that with like striking blue eyes. But I think most Jack Russells have darker brown eyes. So instead of solid black, we'll just go with a really, really dark brown and a relatively light brown, because it is a cartoon after all. Okay, so that'll work. Now, the magic part is making that look like an iris. If you look in the mirror and look at your eyes, it's a lot more fibrous-y looking than just this cloud. So what we're going to do is under mapping, we're going to set the X size to about, say, 20. And you can't see it change in here, but if we go to where you can see both the material and the texture, you can see that it does that. Maybe 20 might be too much, so let's say 10. So we'll go with 10, and then we're going to say coordinates are going to be UV. Okay, so now we can go to eye white. That's fine, just leave it as is because it's white. Actually, just make it white instead of that slightly off white that it was. Set the intensity up. And then pupil is going to be black. Okay. And I don't think this matters, specular and such, but go ahead and turn that off. So now, what we can do is go to the render settings and scroll all the way down to bake and expand that out. And we're going to say textures. So now when we hit bake, it's going to take all of those materials and bake them onto one texture. So go ahead and bake, and boom, you can see it baked the procedural texture cloud there for the iris, and the black part for the pupil, and then the whites for the white. So let's go ahead and save this, save as image, and I am going to go ahead and make it a JPEG instead of a PNG because I don't want to mess with the transparency. I guess I could just say, if it was a PNG, I could say just RGB instead of RGBA, but JPEGs are slightly smaller in file size, so that'll be fine. So let's call this one Jacky eyeball. Okay, save as image, and now we can come over here to our materials and just go ahead and get rid of all these other two. Actually, tell you what, I'll leave those on there for the source files if somebody wants to get those later on. And we'll just create a new one, and we'll call this one, we'll just call it Jacky eyeballs. Okay, now we'll go over to, actually, now we can jump into cycles, I guess. Yes, let's do that. We're going to jump into cycles now. Yay, cycles. Okay, and let's change this window over here to the node editor. And go ahead and hit N to clear that out, the properties tab. And we'll go ahead and hit Alt-H to unhide Jacky himself. All right, let's start with him. I'm going to go ahead and create a new material. We'll call this one Jacky material, I guess. Okay, use the nodes. Diffuse BSDF is just what we're wanting. And use nodes over here. There we go. And we're going to load in an input, and it's going to be an image. And it will be, should be in there already. Yes, Jacky texture map. We'll just run the image slider. Okay, I'm in the wrong I'm in the wrong section here. Turn off the use nodes and make sure you're on the materials button right there. I know everybody's screaming at me. Dave, you're in the wrong spot. Okay, my bad. All right, input. Texture coordinates. No, delete that. Input. You have to forgive me. I'm not real well versed in, that's under texture, image texture. I'm not real well versed in cycles. I've been working with a lot more than usual lately, but Jacky texture. There we go. So now if we were to turn this view to rendered, you can see that's what he's going to look like. Now what happened to all those lamps that we had? Let's see where they're at. Let's come back into solid view. And we can see that all of the lamps are there in the scene, but let's get rid of some. Grab this lamp, and we're going to turn that into a sunlight. And we're going to say use the nodes, and the strength, let's set that about 3. Okay, let's go ahead and drag that up out of the way a little bit. And it's pretty much, it lights the whole scene no matter where it's at and the direction. So I know in Blender internal, if you're using like a spotlight, you have to make sure you're inside the cone of light. But with the sunlight, it's pretty much just that. It's kind of acts as the sun. Let me get a different angle on here so we can kind of see him a little bit better. Zoom in here, Control-Alt-0 will reset the camera to the preview area. So now, when we go to rendered, it'll give us a better view. All right, so that's pretty good on his texture. Now, if we wanted to get nitpicky, we could go in and make sure we did underneath the paws with the black coloring and everything else, but we'll just go ahead and leave it as is. I mean, if you want to take the time and go ahead and do that, feel free. But I'm going to move on to the eyeballs, so go ahead and select that. You can't hardly tell it's selected, but you can come over here if you like and say, okay, well, there's Jacky. He's selected now. There's the lamp. That's the sunlight. And the sphere. That's eyeball. Let's go ahead and rename that, actually. Hit N on our pad here. Or bring up our properties. And scroll down. There it is, sphere item. So let's call this one eyeball. Okay? And we're eventually going to have to duplicate that and actually turn off the mirror modifier that's on it. And make two separate eyeballs rather than just the one. But For now, we'll leave it alone. But anyways, okay. So let's go ahead and grab that eyeball again. Tab into edit mode. Actually, I have to come into edit mode, solid view. There we go. And let's select everything here. And we're going to assign Jacky eyeballs to everything there. Assign. Okay. We're going to create one more material. This is going to be a new one. This one's going to be Jacky eyeball lens. Okay. And that one's going to be, if we Alt-H to unhide that lens there, Control-L, select everything on that, we can assign that Jacky eyeball lens to just the lens. And when we come out, we can say we want this to be, where's it at? Glass, BSDF, right there. And that's pretty much all we need to do to it. Now on Jacky eyeballs, we need to go ahead and say use nodes, diffuse BSDF, yes. And we'll go ahead and add a image texture in here. And go ahead and set the color to the color on the diffuse BSDF. And we want to say untitled, which should say Jacky eyeballs. No, you can't read that small. Zoom in there. Jacky, not Jacky eyeballs. Okay. And there we go. So now if we go to rendered view, you can see that the lenses are very reflective. So we need to set that to have some roughness. 0.2. Oh, and on Jacky eyeballs, let's see. For some reason, it's not showing up in here. Let me poke around and see if I can figure out why that's just black instead of the actual texture map. So, be right back. Okay, simple fix. I just went to open the texture again and just open the image, and it kind of just reset it, I guess. So it's kind of hard to see. Let's go ahead and set the lens. If I can, it'll grab it. There we go. Set that roughness to, oh, I see. Should be 0.2 instead of 2. There we go. And you can see that looks a lot better now. Now, the preview is only 10 samples, and to really be able to see that real well, we'd need a lot more than 10 samples. But you know what? Let's set the roughness to 0, because we want these to be really shiny, glossy eyeballs. Okay, so anyways, let's come back to, let's just go to material, shaded. There we go. And one thing we can do so that we can kind of see the eyes a little better than just white spheres is over here on the active data display, under display we can turn on transparency, and it should make that transparent. Maybe not. Maybe it's only in solid view. No. Oh well, I don't know if it works like that in Cycles. Should work like that in Blender internal, but in any case. Okay, so we got our material all set up, and again we're running close to 20 minutes, but you know what? Let's go ahead and do it. I was gonna go ahead and make it in part 7, but we'll go ahead and do it now. We're gonna give him some fur now. Actually, before we do that, let's go ahead and define where we want the fur to go and where we don't want it to go. So let's Alt-H, unhide that. So I basically want the fur on this, on well, pretty much everything except for the eyelids, the nose, and inside the mouth. And really don't want it on the bottom of the feet either. So let's select a face from each place that the fur is going to go. Control L, and the backs of his ears as well. Control L, and oopsie, this one, Control L. Okay, and then the tops of his feet. Let's pause. And let's go ahead and select this loop here. And this loop there. Okay, and since we have the mirror turned on, I guess it selects both sides. Mirror. The mirror right there, selecting both sides. So cut our workload in half. So anyways, now under the image data there, vertex group, let's go ahead and create a new one, and we'll call this one fur. F-U-R. There we go. Assign all that. And let's go to vertex select mode, because that's actually what's being applied. And you can see that it went ahead and went under the toes as well. So I don't want that. Let's undo a couple of times. There we go. Let's go ahead and undo that loop. So I guess I'll need to go ahead and Control L again. Yes. So we can undo. Well, darn. Let's go and assign that, and then we'll select a vertex from each one of the feet and remove. So now if we select that, select. Not working like I would like. Okay, we'll select this manually then. So all these guys, C, and turn that off again. Remember we turned this limit selection to visible off a while back, so let's turn that, or we turned it on, turn it off now. Let's select all these guys and deselect these guys. There we go. Now assign, and then just to be sure, select the inverse, which is everything else, and go ahead and remove that. Okay, now to make sure we don't have it going inside his mouth, let's select inside the tongue there. You can kind of see where it's at. Just go ahead and select that, and then we'll grab the vertex select mode and Control plus a few times so it starts coming out of the mouth like so. And now we'll say remove that from the fur as well. So now if we select our fur, we can see pretty much everywhere we want. And one more place I would like to take it off of, and that is around the eye sockets. So let's select that loop there, and then I guess it would be this loop here. Go ahead and Control plus a couple times, and then we'll come to our side view and deselect where we know we do want it. Okay, so we'll go ahead and I tell you what, let's go ahead and uncheck these as well. Well, yeah. Okay, and go ahead and remove those as well. Okay, so now we're good to go. That took a little longer than it should have, I guess, but the next part won't be that bad. Now we'll go to the particle panel, and go ahead and hit the plus sign there, and it adds a particle system. It doesn't really matter what we name it here because it doesn't care, or it doesn't name it here, so it adds it as another modifier. But let's call this fur, if I can spell it correctly. There we go. And instead of emitter, it's going to be hair. And boom, he gets a big afro. We don't want that, so let's make the length a lot smaller, say 0.5. Let's see what that looks like. That's still too long, so let's try 0.25. That's a little better, maybe 0.1. Yeah, that'll probably work. Jack Russells have very short hair, coarse hair, so this will be fine. Okay, number of 1,000, that's probably fine. Let's scroll all the way down to vertex groups and set the density to be fur. And then that'll put fur where we want it and won't put it where we don't want it. And then under path, let's go ahead and make sure we say strand render and B-spline. And under, okay, and the material needs to be, just that first material will be fine. Okay, so material 1. And then children, let's go ahead and give it interpolated. You can see it kind of thickens up there on him. and set the random all the way up to 1 there under the render settings. Okay. And probably good to go. Let's come down here to... Okay, I don't see my cycles settings. Okay. There's usually some special settings for cycles, but I'm not seeing them, so let's in the meantime, let's go ahead and go to particle edit, and let's go ahead and kind of comb this to where it's more streamlined looking. So grab the comb and set the strength down to about 0.5, and then we can just kind of brush in here. Just kind of slick that back. Just kind of follow his body. Okay, go to our top view. And the ear is actually going to be, instead of going down them, it's actually going to be going towards the tip. I see this was talking about when I redid the ears a little bit so they didn't fold over quite as far. So now I can get in there and edit the fur on them a little bit easier. Okay. And one thing that might help while you're combing in here is to go ahead and turn children on, so you can kind of see how they're going as you're drawing them in there. And you can take as much time as you want getting the fur going just the right way that you want. But I'll call that one good. Go ahead and save this. And let me see what's going on, why it's not showing the cycles specific. Let's see if I jump back to Blender Render maybe. Cycles Render. The only thing I see is textures. Well, okay, let me pause recording. I know time's running out, but I would like to figure out why this isn't showing just yet. So sit tight. I'll be right back. Oh, light bulb flashed in my head. I know why it's not showing the button there. It's because the feature set, right now it's under supported. We need to go to experimental. Boom. Now we'll come over here and you can see Cycles Hair Rendering is now available. Now let's set the root to a little bit smaller, to try 0.5. And now if we go to rendered view, you can kind of see some of the fur, but it's only showing the actual strands. It's not showing the children, so we'd have to render it to actually see the children. So let me go ahead and hit render just so we can see it. I'll go ahead and pause recording so you don't have to wait the whole time. Okay, and there it is. You can see it looks a little messy. Looks okay on the body for the most part, but here on the face, like around the eyes and stuff, you can easily tell that it needs some work. But in any case, that's some fur there in Cycles. Let's go back to solid view. Now, one thing that can help this look a little bit better is right now we have everything, the whole body and the fur on the one material, which it works as you can see. But we could make it look a little bit better. So let's duplicate that Jacky material. There we go. The way we do that is just hit the, right now it says there's a 2 there. That means it's applied 2 different times to 2 different, there's 2 instances of this material. So I want it to be its own. So to hit the 2 and it just renames it. So let's name this fur, okay? And now let's come over here to our materials tab, and instead of, let's see, trying to remember how I did this earlier, we can set a, where's it at, color RGB curves. Nope, that's not it. Apologize. Let me pause recording so I can remember how I did this. I'll be right back. Okay, clear as mud. Let's add an input, and this is going to be hair info. So we'll bring that up to there. And now we're going to add a converter color ramp. Bring that up to here. Now, we're going to, on the hair info, what we need to use is the intercept. So click that and drag that over to the color ramp. And then I want to mix the image texture with this color ramp. So I'm going to add a color mix RGB. Just drag that up to there. Okay, and then we'll drag this down into here. And what this is going to do is this is going to make the bottom of the strand black and the tip of the strand white. I don't want quite to be black, so let's make it a little less dark there, about gray. Maybe make this one a tiny bit less light. So we got a nice gray to white color there. So I do want the original texture to show through that there, though, so instead of mixing it, I just want to multiply it. So let's tab into edit mode, select everything on the model there, and go ahead and assign the fur. Well, I guess it's not gonna it's not gonna work. So let's make sure we go back to Jacky material. I was gonna try to test it out, but I guess it needs to have the fur on there to be able to test it out. So one thing to make things run a little smoother is go back to our modifiers tab and go ahead and set the subdivisions on Jacky there down to 1, and it'll be, or actually down to 0, and we can look at the rendered version a little faster. So we can zoom in here on some of the fur. Okay. Oh, right. I need to tell the fur to use that second material. So go to the render settings, and instead of material 1, go boom, material 2. And you can kind of see where it's a little bit darker at the root and fades to the tip, like so. Okay, so one thing we need to do to make this fur look a lot better. Well, before we do that, I'm sorry I keep backtracking. Boy, 32 minutes. I'm sorry this one's going so long. But let's keep trucking. We'll be done shortly. Go back to materials, Jacky material. Instead of just the diffuse, I'd like to give a little bit of a gloss to it. So we're going to add an input, or actually a shader, and this is going to be glossy BSDF. Drag that over here, and just to make things so they're not so laggy, let's turn the particle system off for now in the view, so I can get a better view. Hit N so it gets rid of that toolbox. Okay, I want to make him slightly glossy. So I'm going to set the glossy BSDF to about, let's try 0.35. Okay, and we need to add a shader, a mix shader. So drag that up here. Drag the glossy down to the second one, and the diffuse up to the first one, and then drag material out over here. Just one thing, trying to work on this and look at it at the same time is kind of laggy. So go ahead and kill that loop there. And we can see he's very shiny now. But it's kind of a dull shine, and that's kind of what we want. But let's make it way lower. So 0.2, try that. That's a little better. Maybe 0.1. And I think that's just enough to give him a nice sheen to his, like his eyelids and a nose and things like that. So now go ahead and save, and tell you what, 34 minutes. I'm going to go ahead and stop right here on part 6. And part 7 we'll finish up with the fur and maybe get started on the rig. So sorry this one took so long and we still didn't finish, but I'll see you in part 7.